Welcome to the Friends of Van podcast. I am Mr. Van, and today we're going to be meeting with Mr. Davidson with Megapixels Media. Mr. Davidson is a professional photographer for commercial applications, so architecture, commercial events, and all things commercial, really. So we're just going to jump right into it. This is just a one-to-one, and we're going to have a little chat with Mr. Davidson. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Fantastic. Doing good. So this is Mr. Davidson and I are both part of a networking, chapter, networking club. And part of our marketing and sales is word of mouth and networking. And so what we do as referral partners is we get to know each other, and then we refer each other business back and forth. So if you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Megapixels Media, we'll jump right into it.
Sure. Yeah. So with Megapixels Media, I offer commercial photography and video production for brands and businesses across various industries. I do a lot with the trades and construction, home service companies. And with that, I also pair high-end architectural photography. So it works well for those type of businesses where they can use branding along throughout a project or talking with their past customers. And then they can pair that up with some nice portfolio imagery when we're finished up to go in magazines or to post on the website of their finished projects. And then just, other local businesses need social media videos, website intros, brand stories. So all that type of stuff is what I like to work on.
I got you. So you do photography and video. So tell me more about the video side of it. I think everybody kind of understands what a photographer does at a commercial event. What does a videographer do at a commercial event?
Yeah. So if we're talking about events specifically, the video a lot of times would end up being cut into almost like a short form recap with lots of fun clips throughout the day of, people having fun at the coffee table or, talking with their friends, laughing, grabbing food, some quick shots of the podium speakers. And then it just kind of gets edited up into usually around a 1 minute recap that you can put up online as a piece of marketing around the energy of your event to get people excited to come next year. That's generally what I would do for an event video. There are companies that will do a longer form, more documentation of the entire event, and there are specialized companies for that. But for myself, an event video would be more that quick recap, fun type of video.
Gotcha. Okay. So, and how do you take these videos? You have a news camera, a shoulder camera type camera, or what type of equipment do you have for these type of shoots?
So I have a Sony A1 that I use on a gimbal for when I need to be more mobile. And that's kind of just like a handheld rig, but it produces really high quality looking videos. And I can use that as a photo camera too. So that's usually what I'll bring to an event. And then if I'm doing something more static where I have a tripod set up and it's going to be one nicely set up shot, I do have a Sony cinema camera as well that we'll use for things like that. So they both shoot in the same type of color profile. We can match them up nicely during the edit, but it just depends on how mobile I need to be.
I see. So these cameras, you're able to adjust the lighting and exposure on those so that from one shot to the next shot, everything stays smooth. Even though you're using different cameras, they have the software on them to color match these things. I'm sure in post-production, you've got some flexibility, but it seems like it would have to be close, when you're doing the initial recording.
Yeah. So I use Sony cameras, and the two that I have both shoot in the same log profile. Log is basically just like the raw video format that they shoot in. And so I'm getting comparable files from both cameras that I can throw into the editing program and match up pretty easily.
Good deal. And so I'm imagining, I'm just trying to paint a picture inside my own mind. You're going to show up, you're going to break out some equipment. Let's just say we're doing a holiday event because we're in the holiday season right now, and you're going to go to maybe our networking. You're going to go to our networking holiday party, set up a tripod, and then you also have a handheld camera. Do you also take lighting with you? Do you have? I don't know anything about this. So you have to talk to me like I'm 5. When you set
Yeah.
up for an event, do you also manage the lighting and so forth that you have?
For event photography, I'll bring a flash. For event videos, I don't really do too much artificial lighting just because there's so many different areas that I'm going to be running around to and filming. So generally, I'll just work with the light that's available for an event video. But for other types of videos, I will, light the scene as needed for interviews and things like that. But at an event, generally, I'm working with what I've got. So I get to be a little creative sometimes with the way that we set the cameras up especially if it's dark in the room. But the cameras that I have are very good in low light, so it's not too much of an issue these days with the newer stuff that I have.
I see. So if you're doing indoor events with overhead lighting and things like that, there's you're just using what you've got, and perhaps thinking about the different angles that you can be at to get an appropriate shot. Just kind of working with whatever lighting you have going on, because sometimes you go to these things and they've got yellow lighting overhead with a open, with a window, so you'll have natural light coming from the side, and then you'll have a yellow light coming down from the top, and you know how to manage all of those details to make it a really quality shot, just working with what you have. So
usually I'll try and balance it so that the main light source is clean. So if it's like very yellow inside, I'll balance that, and then you might get a little bit of the windows looking kind of blue, which is easier to manage in a photo because you can just edit the window. But for the videos, I'll try and get like as much of the scene looking correct as I can. And then maybe if the window is really egregious, I'll just try not to show too much of the window or something. I would have to figure it out per scene.
Yeah, sounds like you really know what you're talking about. It's all over my head. I just hire guys like you is what I do, because all that technical stuff is kind of tricky for me. So those are the two things you have for events, but you also do some drone footage and some movement type video.
Yeah. Yep. So I do have the Mavic 4 Pro, which is the newest DJI drone, has all the fun bells and whistles. Get my drone license. So one thing I do a lot for other videographers is just kind of help out with drone, because I do know a fair amount of people who don't have drone licenses. It's a nice thing that I can offer for my colleagues and for their projects as well. But yeah, drone photos and video. Just kind of try not to go too overboard with it in the final edit, just showing a lot of drone stuff. But it's nice to be able to include a few aerial shots where appropriate. So that works.
Yeah, I really like the aerial shots. I think they look great because, we don't look at our world around us from these angles, especially extreme angles up high in the air, and then you zoom down to where you're at. And it's kind of an interesting experience as a consumer of that type of videography. I really enjoy it. So you mentioned something interesting, that you also work with other photographers and colleagues. So you guys have a symbiotic relationship of some sort. Yeah. How does that work? So are these people you just know from the industry, or did you go to college with them? How do you get to know other videographers and get to working with them?
Yeah. So right now it's a mix of, a few people that I went to school with, a few people that I've met through networking. One of the guys that I do contracting at his company for, I do some real estate listing photography with him, but he'll occasionally get project inquiries that he doesn't either have the time for or is too far away or something. So he'll hand that to me. A couple wedding videographers that I know who don't have drone licenses, so they'll call me to do some drone work for them, at the really nice venues. I might pop in for an hour and get some drone stuff. So just kind of over time, running into people and building it up. And then, more through networking, I've been introduced to a few videographers, and we discuss, what type of stuff do you like to shoot? And sometimes it's different. So you might meet somebody who only wants to do weddings and has no interest in a customer testimonial video. So they'll send that type of work to me.
I see.
I'll
So you
send
guys
them a
are just
wedding.
specialized. So you're specialized in each kind of field where you probably don't do weddings.
Yeah.
In high school events, because you have high school graduations and things like that. And you probably steer away from that and stay more commercial, because that's what I was looking at on your website. Everything was pretty commercial. You had a few wedding photos in there, and I'm sure there's some, crossover there at some point, especially getting started. But your website mainly focuses on commercial. And so that makes sense that some of the people that you're working with, they're doing specialized, maybe portraits, or maybe they do, strictly studio work, and then they get contracts that come through. Whenever you guys do that, is it just politeness that you're doing referrals on, or do you guys pay referrals? Like if you get a big job, do these other colleagues expect like a referral fee?
I haven't run into that. Mostly it's just been like, hey, I got this, somebody reached out for this project. Do you want it? Type of deal.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, it's mostly been, pretty pleasant with all of the other people that I've met, and we'll just kind of help each other out. If I know that, like I recently met a product photography person. I don't do products really at all because it's pretty specialized. So now I have her, and I already sent her 3 connections for people that have recently asked me about product photography. So, and she doesn't do video at all. So that works great.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if she needs a little something, she can just hire you. She doesn't have to buy $25,000 worth of equipment.
Yeah,
She can just pay you a
exactly.
few $100 and get the shots that she needs for whatever project she's working on.
Yeah.
Sounds like a really good symbiotic relationship there. I
Yeah.
think that's great. And it's good that you have the personality where you're not just constantly competing with people, that there's, we've all got our talents, and we're all specialized in some sort of a field, and we have to be able to kind of get along and not be rigid competitors all the time.
Yeah.
I don't get that in my industry all the time, which,
Yeah.
I do gold and silver, and sometimes it's extremely competitive.
Oh yeah.
And it doesn't, those typically aren't relationships that I foster, or those really rigid competitive relationships. We all kind of have to get along. And sometimes, even as salesmen, we have to lean on other people.
Yep.
So it's good. I'm glad you have that personality, and you and I are really good referral partners. We've gone out and done some things together to help drum up work together for each other. And I really enjoyed that. I thought that went really well.
Yeah, that was fun. We should do it again.
Absolutely. Especially the pizza part. I was down for that. So got to get off that.
Definitely. We need another giant pizza.
Yeah. I got to get off the holiday weight right now, though. So maybe in a couple of weeks when I get back to my ideal. So speaking of ideal, I've got a few questions for you here. So what is an ideal client or customer look like for you? What is it specifically you're going for?
Yeah. So there are a couple big fish that I would probably lead with. One being marketing agencies, specifically those who don't do content production in-house, which I have found is almost all of them. So they'll do websites, social media management, Facebook and Google ads. They'll run your strategy. They'll help you manage your Google My Business profile. But almost none of them are going to go out and take branding photos and make a video of your business. So, but they need those things, so they hire them out. So having agency partnerships is really good and has proved to be successful so far for me. Just kind of like as a top of the funnel, well, actually really the bottom of the funnel, because they're already dealing with all these businesses, and once they're ready for videos, they need them. So they'll just reach out to me and it's good to go. So those are good. And then the other side would be like a builder or an architect, because they're going to need that branding video, photography of their team, construction footage, and the high-end architectural portfolio work. So that's kind of like the other side of that business, the big fish for that side of stuff.
Yeah, that dawns on me. I have a few high-end remodelers in the Boston proper area. And he's always doing all kinds of video, but he's just doing it from his phone. That could be, I never thought about that. That could be a good contact for you.
Yeah.
Right there. That's great. So what kind of, have you ever given any thought into specifically what type of clientele you're looking for, like the age range of your client, or, we've already covered industry some, but, what's a good company size and an age range? Little details like that. Have you given any thought to that type of specific, I can't even say it, specific type of,
Yeah.
of client?
I haven't thought too much about age, because a lot of new businesses might be younger, where the builders and the architects may have been doing it for a while. They may be getting closer to retirement or selling their business to somebody else. But in terms of company size, I would say like small to medium-sized businesses, up
Now,
to
what's small? What's a small business to you? What are we talking small?
small, probably like, like local businesses under 50 employees.
Under 50. Okay.
Yeah. Somebody who doesn't have the budget or the need really to have somebody like me on their payroll, but they need the content nonetheless. So they'll come to somebody like me occasionally, once or twice a year versus having that person be full-time. So those are good. And then similarly, what am I going to say here?
Small and medium-sized businesses. So
Yeah.
so let's move to a medium business. More than 50 is a medium business, but what type of business is a medium business that you've done work with?
I'm probably just butchering the terminology here. Like medium, or to me, like a medium-sized business would be like, I don't even know. I mean, I have to scrap this part here, but
Nah, it's all good. It's all good. No, this is good stuff. So I want to know the difference between, what you might offer to a small business versus a big business. But we can get into that in later one-to-ones as well, because we're just kind of trying to get through an overview here.
Yeah, I would say businesses that are, big enough to need good marketing and an upgrade to their videos, or understand that they need high quality stuff on their social media pages, but not to the point where they're large enough that they're going to need an entire film crew, or giant studio sets for ultra high end, top of the industry type stuff. And usually you run into that with large corporations, but local businesses and smaller, big brands, I guess I would say, like brands that but that aren't conglomerates, basically.
Yeah, and you have the ability with these other colleagues to pull some other people in if they did have a larger project. And some of these other folks could help you out, and they at least know the language. They may not be specialized in commercial photography, but when you tell them to, set up some sort of a lighting system, or tell them that you need a specific type of shot, the language better than I do. But you can just speak to them, and they understand what you're talking about.
Yep. So I can pull together a crew of 3 or 4 videographers for a larger project for somebody like me, where it's 5 people on set, so then we can help out those bigger local businesses that might need a little more service. But we're not quite at the level where we would do like
here the city does like a concert series in the summertime, and it's 3,000 or 4,000 people there, and maybe they want 4 or 5 people working the crowd, because you're not going to be able to use everything. And to get 15 minutes of something, you may have to shoot for 4 or 5 hours to get really good shots of people enjoying the music and the band and the lighting and so forth. So it can wind up, just getting a few minutes can wind up taking hours. Enough. Certainly, and that can take 3 or 4 people. Good. So the next question here is, what's a recent example of a great client that you've closed, that you want more work? You would love to get more work from people like that. What's a recent example of just a really good job that you had?
Yeah. So I'm actually finishing up with a big architectural photography job right now. We're in the editing and approval phase of so they already selected their images, and so I'm now finishing retouching those that they've selected. But this was a cool job where it was a combination between the architectural designer and the construction company that built it. So it was a double license, working with two larger companies that have, they're pretty well known. So those will be awesome to put their logos on my new website when it comes out. But I really love those. You're hanging out with, the experts in their field for a day at a really nice house, shooting great photos. And then those type of clients will usually end up running the pictures in a magazine as an ad or submitting it for an award consideration. So those are really fun to work on because your photos may end up further out and with a bit more recognition than, just a local Facebook page, which there's nothing wrong with the local Facebook pages either, but the wider used stuff is always a bit more fun.
Yeah, especially if they get some sort of architectural award and they used your photo to promote that award. That is exciting.
Yep.
Yeah. So with that client, how did you get them? How did you rope them in? What was the process leading up to that contract?
Yeah. So the builder is actually my previous employer. So I used to work in their marketing department. Went off to start my own business, but they still pull me in for some projects here and there.
Ah, that's really great. That's one thing. That's relationship marketing, and it's the most important. That's why you can't burn bridges when you leave companies, because you never know when you're going to need to reach back out to someone, and you need to have a good relationship with them to do that. And almost everybody, I'd say most people that you work for and it worked for you, they just want people to be able to do better for themselves, and if you're going out on your own and taking those leaps, I find most people want to help you, even former employers, or, they hope the best for you and they try to help you out.
They were all very supportive and excited for me when I let them know that I was going to be heading out. Obviously sad that I wouldn't be there anymore, but overall it was a positive attitude when I finished up working there.
Sure. And then now you get to carry that relationship forward. And, one day you might be working for doing a shoot for some other contractor that needs to partner up with someone who has an architect license. Maybe you're working for an engineer that engineer needs an architect, or, you and I both know a couple of builders that don't have an engineering license or an architectural license, but they do design build. And sometimes they need those signatures. And so it can really work out both ways.
Yep.
Yeah. So, who are some of your best existing referral sources right now? So what are you doing to gain referrals specifically?
Yeah. Referral sources. There are a few. So actually, kind of ironically, one of my good referrals is a wedding videographer who I'll go do weddings with, even though that's not the main thing that I advertise.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of on the side, I'll do second shooting at weddings with her, which is we do 1 or 2 a month usually during busy season. It's slower now, but throughout the fall, I do a lot of work with her. But she also does commercial work when she's not shooting weddings. So she'll pull me in as a second videographer for that stuff too. Either maybe I'll run audio while she runs video, or, if she needs an extra camera, I'll bring my giant movie rig for the really fancy stuff that she does.
So those professional relationships are really key for you, is having those professional relationships. I'm sure you get some former clients that are passing your name around, but the people that are really out there, hustling are those other commercial relationships that you have.
Yep. And she doesn't have a drone license. So, anybody, especially commercial clients who are like, oh, we need an exterior shot of our building, she'll be like, hey, you want to come help me out with this? So that's been good. And then the other one is there's a few agencies that I work with, but there's one that has kind of sent me more work than the others. Just like what I was describing earlier, they have, how many does he have? Over 200 clients through his business. So there's a constant need for, various different things. And when video comes up, I'm the first person they call. So it's great.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Got to keep those professional relationships and keep good rapport.
Yeah,
for sure. So outside of your clients, your current clients and your current networking partners that you have, who else would you like to meet and be introduced to? Is there anybody specific that you're currently not talking to, or maybe an industry that you're not talking to? It could be any wild thing. Is there a gap right now that you wish you could get into?
Definitely, more people in the architectural field, given that most of my connections there are through the previous employer, which I've already, secured working with them. And all the other kind of like interior photography connections that I have currently are real estate agents, because I've done a lot of real estate listings, but it's a different group of people than the builders and architects, of which I know not as many. So that I would like to move more in that direction towards architectural and construction branding. And
yeah, there's some organizations here up at the Capitol and things like that where large construction firms get together and network, but it's very specifically architects and builders is who get together. And I think there's a couple of hundred, maybe even a couple of thousand companies that meet up there at the Capitol, and we could look at getting you in on some of those. So I used to be members of those when I was a general contractor. I was members of those, and that would plug you into 1,000 people right there. And if you get 10% of 1,000, that's 100 clients. If you got 2%, that'd be 20 clients. That'd be great. Yeah. So, tell me, what is the number one thing I should be listening for when I'm talking to people? Because that I go out and meet with people constantly. Networking is my job, and I'm having 5 to 7 conversations a day with people. What is something that I should be paying attention to in these conversations that's going to trigger me to think about Megapixel?
Yeah. So there's one that's kind of the obvious one, and then one that might be a good conversation starter for you. The obvious one is, somebody's like, "Oh, dude, I have my Instagram. I don't know what I'm doing with my Instagram. Like, nobody ever looks at anything. It's terrible. I hate social media. I don't know what to do with it." You'd be like, "Oh, I know a guy that can shoot you all kinds of reels and things, and you can post. You'll have good stuff to post." Or similarly, someone with their website, they'd be like, "Oh my God, like the pictures on my website are 15 years old. It's just not good." Somebody kind of expressing concern over their visuals generally. That's an obvious one. Oh, I have a guy who does that. But the conversation starter, kind of almost like a soft pitch one, might be somebody who has a very big project that's happening that they're really excited about, or a new client that went really well, and they're super happy about something that would be that they should tell people about, versus just kind of being happy on their own. It might be worth asking, oh, are you going to do any marketing around that, or what have you thought about sharing that online? And then there might be a way to open it up and mention that somebody who can capture that in a way that they can share. More eyeballs on their company.
Yeah, that's good. I'll try and keep that in mind whenever I'm chatting with people. One thing that I try to do is we're early in the week right now, and I try to take these notes from these meetings that we have and make a conscious effort to make them part of the conversations that I'm going to have for a week. I can usually do that for about 2 weeks. It's easy the first week because you're right, top of mind, because we just had the conversation. The second week, it kind of tapers off to where, maybe I remember to bring you up, or maybe I hear some of those trigger words. But it's important for us to constantly tag each other once or twice a month to keep these conversations right in the forefront, so that I can constantly bring them up. But I'll keep that in mind. I'll try and get some conversation starters going, and I'll try to drum up some work for you this week. And so we're right at the end of the conversation now. This was a really good meeting. It wound up, we had some technical difficulties starting with that nobody got to see, but
we
it
got
all
worked out
now. And and that's great. So I'm going to thank you, Mr. Davidson, for coming on to this episode. I hope that we can continue the conversation and get more in depth on some of the details moving forward.
Sure.
And for right now, I'll have everybody go over to megapixels.com. That's megapixels with a Z at the end.com, and go check out Mr. Davidson's work. You have a great week, my friend, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me at this episode of Friends of Van, where we are always trying to make gains and give more than we receive. So go out today and try to drum up some referrals for somebody that you know, or maybe even find someone that would be a good referral partner for you. Have a chat with them, see if it works out. What we learned from this episode are colleagues, former employees and colleagues are great people to work for, even competitors that are specialized in another area of your industry. You can connect with them, have some conversations, and maybe build a good rapport with them and a good referral partner for in the future. As for now, I'm Mr. Van. This was Friends of Van podcast. You guys have fun marketing this week and take care. Bye-bye.